to the Buzz Pound.
Smith scores, and the Carolina Panthers win in overtime.
A Queen City sports podcast covering your Charlotte Hornets and Carolina Panthers.
Halliburton, nowhere to go! LaMelo's done it! LaMelo's done it! Hornets win! Here comes LaMelo.
Here are your hosts, Ian Blair and Cam Gardner.
Buzz Pound, it's here. It's finally here. I'm here. Ian, you here?
I'm here.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, welcome to the Buzz Pound, episode 1, where we will be covering your Charlotte Hornets and Carolina Panthers. Ian, I'm excited. You excited?
I'm excited, man. It's a long time coming. Finally got it up and rolling.
Yes, sir. Now tell me this. When or what made you become a fan of both the Carolina Panthers and the Charlotte Hornets?
That's a good question. Well, so originally I think my first memory, obviously both me and Cam grew up in the Carolinas, both Charlotte natives. I think my first memory of the Panthers was when we drafted Cam. I had previous memories with Jimmy Clausen and obviously that whole debacle, but I think the biggest, one of my most vivid memories was being at the draft party whenever we drafted Cam, with my entire family. So that was a special moment, obviously, in the years that followed with him and the success we had as a team, and especially in 2015 with Thomas Davis, Luke Kuechly, Jonathan Stewart, those were some special years. I think my first memory of the Hornets, well, the Bobcats at the time, when I first started watching them really was Kemba's earlier years. And then Gerald Henderson obviously was on the team and all those guys. And I became a fan of the teams when we weren't very good at, either football or basketball. We've had some good years, especially in football, but, basketball has just been one of those things that we've yet to really find success in. But obviously always hoping for the best for both teams and, diehard Charlotte sports fan, both Hornets and Panthers. So, Cam, you want to tell everybody how you kind of got started being a fan of both the teams?
Gladly. So it all starts literally from the beginning. I mean, ever since I could remember, all I knew was the Panthers and at the time the Bobcats, because that's what we had growing up. The team first got brought back to Charlotte. Growing up in Charlotte, going to school, we had spirit days where it'd be nothing but blue and black, repping the Panthers, and even going to school with some of the children of the players or having some of the players come talk to us at assemblies and such. Remember one time we had Musa Muhammad come. I went to Polo Ridge Elementary, and I guess it's kind of Valentine in Charlotte, and the fandom was always there. Even looking back at pictures growing up, my folks always had me in either Panthers, Bobcats, or Hornets, if you will. So the fandom has always been there, going to games as well. My dad, he's a Panthers fan by trade. He's first Giants because he's a native New Yorker, but he always made sure to make sure I was always decked out, in my Panthers gear. And he, repped along with me. We went to games or we would always go out and watch the games on Sundays. Just always in the heart of Charlotte doing something because there's nothing being in the heart of a city that has a team. And like I said, with the Hornets at the time, Bobcats, I remember when the team first got brought back. I think that was 2004. And I remember having an orange jersey. Kind of tacky if you look back on it. But very different compared to what it was. And I think everybody will say that. But just the idea of having a team back in the city was awesome. And I didn't go to many Bobcat games growing up. I went to more when I got older when they got the Hornets name back. But like I said, the fandom was always there. Always being decked out in the gear. I thought it was cool at the time and still do. But yeah, that's where the fandom is. And like you said, I mean, both organizations have not had many good years. I was always a fan during the more rough years, but to me, that if you stick around during those times, that's what makes you a true fan. So I am a true Hornets and Panther fan
Yeah,
to
for
the day
sure.
I die.
I think it's important that we both stuck around through the hard times.
And it's not
Well,
many of us either.
yeah, for sure. Well, looking on this 2024 season, obviously we've completed the preseason. I think there was some good things that the team did, and obviously there's some bad things. Obviously the starters didn't play the first two games. Cam, do you want to kind of go through game three with the Bill versus the Bills and kind of how did the starting offense looked, and then just kind of expectations, how Bryce looked and things like that.
Yeah, for certain. So watching the game, I last time we saw Bryce really play was last season, which was not a pretty one. Everybody knows that. Um, I knew they made a few moves, and I was thinking that was our time to see what they're made of and what expectations we could have. And they came out and they really did not disappoint me personally. And I can pretty sure say most fans could say the same thing. We're talking about a 12 play, 85-yard opening drive with a touchdown to tight end Jordan Matthews. Bryce Young looked comfortable. Plus having protection was a plus. I mean, both of those things is what he lacked last year. Um, it was great to see. I know it's just preseason, but it gave me some hope. I mean, even Canales, new coach at that, stated early on that Young was not going to play um, the whole or the whole starting offense at that. They weren't going to play the whole game. Um, but when they were out there, they did not disappoint. And, he always said that during the practice, they looked like they had all this potential and he's got high expectations of them. And what I saw in that game, if they could keep that up, it could be a good looking season for us. And can finally bring some excitement back to us fans and the city.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with everything you said. Bryce obviously looked really good. Preseason, I like to say it's not real football because a lot of those guys, that play preseason are fighting for roster spots. But it was nice to see the starting offense. We were waiting, week one and week two of the preseason. We didn't see the starting offense. And we finally got to see a little of them in action and against the Bills in the final week of the preseason. I think Bryce looked great. I think, the offseason additions of Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt were great. Obviously, the offensive line was prioritized heavily in free agency, especially after the season we had, not being able to protect Bryce last year. Um, but yeah, I think the offense looked great. The additions of Deontay Johnson, Jonathan Mingo, year two, Xavier Legette coming in as a rookie, all the weapons we've surrounded him around with, the tight end out of Texas, Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. I think we prioritized Bryce's development this past offseason. And I think it's going to be, night and day difference, especially from last year. It's harder to get worse than we had, the team last year. I think, you know, winning two games and then not having your first round pick obviously just hurt us so bad and kind of set us behind the eight ball. But with this upcoming season, Bryce looked great in the one drive he did have. Extended some plays. He had a great throw to Deontay Johnson along the sideline, where he extended the play a little bit, um, and looked great. I mean, he really did. He looked much improved from last year. And I think we've all, as Panthers fans, we've all known, Bryce had this talent, last year with the Texans and how successful CJ Stroud was kind of overshadowed, the potential that Bryce Young has. Um, and he's obviously a, Heisman Trophy winner, all these accolades from Alabama, played so great at Alabama, and to finally see him progress a little bit in the preseason, albeit it was nice to see. It was nice to see overall, and hopefully that plays over into the season, this upcoming season.
No, 100%. I completely agree. You know, piggybacking off of what you said, you mentioned how Stroud's season overshadowed Bryce is obviously because, going into that draft, everybody knew we were the first pick, and those two names in particular were always, um, the two high caliber names. It was always which they're going to pick. A lot of people felt Stroud should have been the quarterback we chosen, especially after the season outcome of last year. But personally, I was one of those few that kept telling people to just, it's a process. Most times when players get drafted number one, they're not going to a good team, especially if it's a quarterback. You're not going to a great team. That's why that team is number one. Even though originally we weren't, we traded up to get to that spot, but we got rid of a lot of assets to get there. So we definitely declined to get to that position. We lost Moore, obviously, who was our wide receiver one at the time. But I think Young will have a better year. It's a learning process of it all. A lot of expectations going in. Yeah, I mean, it's a process. We just got to see what happens, and hopefully, depending on how week one goes, hopefully they'll be able to learn from that and move on to the next, and hopefully there'll be some more improvement each game this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, I know, there's a couple team or a couple players on this team upcoming that we think, could have massive jumps from last year to this year. Cam, do you want to give us one player in particular to maybe look out for that could have a really bounce back season from the past year?
Yeah, so I know the easy answer would be to say Bryce, but I'm actually going to go the defensive route. I will say J.C. Horn is my player, I think, or expect a breakout year. He's been in the league for a good handful of years now, but obviously it hasn't been a great one for him so far, as injuries have really taken a toll on him. That injury bug truly loves him. Um, I feel like if he doesn't get bit by the injury bug this year, he could really be a standout cornerback in this league and make some noise, and help us defensively. I mean, we're always going to need it. A team needs a good cornerback. Definitely to cover all these talented receivers in the league. I
Yeah.
think he's one of those that
Yeah.
can definitely, you know, make some noise and make a name for himself if he does not get hurt. And hopefully he won't be back in that predicament this year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think, JC Horn's one of those players that is talent wise up there, in my opinion, with Pat Surtain, who just got signed to a massive deal with the Broncos, much deserved. One of the top five corners, if not the best one in the league right now. But I think talent wise, JC Horn's right up there with him. All biases aside, JC Horn coming out of South Carolina when he was drafted was extremely talented, a great press man corner. And very physical. I mean, injuries have just derailed his career so far up to this point. Obviously, he's still very young, and has a lot of lot in the tank. Excuse me, to improve on. And hopefully, this year he can stay healthy, and I think he will show a lot of people what he's capable of. For my breakout player, I'm gonna go the easy route. I think Bryce is gonna show a lot of people this year a much improved, like a much how improved he is. Um, he's got all these weapons surrounding him, better, much improved offensive line. And I think this year, Bryce Young is going to take the next step into his career. And I think he's going to show a lot of people this year that he is our franchise quarterback. And I fully believe that. I think a lot of Panthers fans should believe that. Just based on last year, it was just a rough year. We didn't have a good team. We didn't have a good roster. Um, but this year is a whole new year. Bryce Young is extremely talented. There's a reason we drafted him with the first pick. There's a reason he won the Heisman at Alabama. There's a reason he had all the success in college, and there's a reason he was the first overall pick. And you can knock on his height all you want. I think that's just crap. I really think that. Because he was able to succeed and have all the success he had at Alabama as the same height and all that, and the SEC playing NFL guys every week. So, bouncing over to basketball, obviously, we want to talk about the Hornets a little bit on this podcast because that's important. Um, So what was your thoughts on the Hornets draft class? Obviously, we got a couple good. We had the sixth pick overall. Took the kid out of France, who's very raw, but has a lot of potential. Cam, do you want to go into a little bit, about what we think on this rookie draft class for the Hornets?
Yeah, so like you said, I think it was a surprise to everybody when we drafted Tijon Salon at the six. A lot of people, expected we would get somebody from the collegiate route. Um, and not many people, including myself, I'm sure you can relate as well, was very familiar with Tijon.
Yeah, I had
But
no clue who he was.
yeah, so I had to do my research. I had to look at some highlights from what he did throughout his tenure in France. But we're talking about a guy that's 6'9" with a 7'8" wingspan, plays tough, um, and a fast pace, which could work very well with LaMelo Ball. I mean, because he's very quick and flashy with his game. So any someone that's a fast paced player, I feel like can gel with him pretty well. I think he averaged like 9 points per game, 7 rebounds in preseason, which isn't terrible. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you always
especially
need the
for a young kid.
yeah, you always need the rebounds. Even if he's not a great scorer, I mean, with that wingspan, he could if he could get us some rebounds and some blocks and solid defense, where we can get back on the offense and score. That's what we need. And I mean, you asked about the rookies. We also got KJ Simpson from Colorado at the 42nd pick, who is an offensive skill set. I think from what I saw, he has a talent in passing and scoring. Could use a little advancement defensively, but I think with this rebranded Hornets altogether, inside and out, I think he could, gain some momentum. He's a smaller player. I think he's only 6 feet even. But in the NBA nowadays, it's not always about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. So maybe he can come off the bench and become a weapon for us potentially. But both of these players could definitely use some development. They don't need to be put out there in the fire too fast. I mean, neither one of them are going to start, obviously, but I think we got two solid guys. Hopefully, they'll stick around in the league, even if they're not with us. You always hope for the best of players that have come through us. Just hope they can advance and make a name for themselves in the league.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think the guy we drafted six, I think he's Salon or Saloon. Um, Defensive guy, I think, which is very important, especially after this past year where, well, actually the past couple years, we haven't been able to stop anything. Um, Obviously with Charles Lee coming over from the Celtics, I think that was huge this past offseason. And then, the rookie class was huge, I think. 6 overall pick, has a ton of athletic tools. I think we could all agree on that. He's just got to develop those tools, and that's up to the coaching staff and the training staff and all those things to develop him and make him a good NBA player. Obviously, the kid out of Colorado, scoring, something we could use, and we could use both offense and defense at this point. But you know, I think it was a good draft. Um, the sixth pick has a lot of development, um, a lot of a lot of room to grow. But that's up to the coaching staff, and hopefully he can develop into the next good player. I think he's a rim threat, lob threat, um, and an athletic kid. I think, looking back on this offseason, obviously bringing back Miles Bridges um, was huge, especially for the glue of the team. Obviously him and LaMelo are really good friends off the court. Um, and
Airbnb.
yeah, so I think, this year could be hopefully an improvement once again from last year. I mean, obviously a couple years ago we made the play in, lost back-to-back years to the same team, which was, and just didn't come to play. I mean, it was just rough showings both of those games, both years. But, you know, You want to speak a little bit on, kind of the expectations and how the offseason went?
Yeah, for sure. Expectations, thoughts on the offseason. I mean, it's my head's all over the place with these guys. I mean, if we're being honest, both teams are kind of in a similar situation, Panthers and Hornets.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Brand new coaching staff. Um, you know, we always say it's a rebuilding, but we both teams have been in rebuilding for quite a long time.
Yeah, both teams have been rebuilding for it seems like 5 or 6 years at this point.
Yeah, but I think this Hornets team is seriously in a rebuild, maybe a little more than the Panthers are. Because new head coach in Charles Lee, championship winning coach at that, fresh off a championship in
Yeah, which is
Boston. I
huge,
love
which is
that.
huge. Yep.
I truly love that. He can bring that winning energy. I thought sure he was gonna do a was it Kenny Atkins? I think
Yeah.
that was his name from Golden
Yep.
State. He was gonna um take his name out of the candidate position as soon as they won the championship, but he did not. He stuck to his word. He came. And I think he's ready because he's been a assistant for a long time. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was on the staff with I think that was 2021 when the Milwaukee Bucks won. So he has two championships as a coach. So he knows what it takes. I believe that's right. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But and then we're also talking about a new executive vice president of basketball operations and Jeff Peterson. Again, it's serious rebuild, but these guys who came in and they got to work quick. We also got a new coaching staff, which also includes former star player for the Hornets and Bobcats, Kimball Walker, as a
Which
player
is which
enhancement
is
coach.
huge. Which is
It's
huge.
big time. Um, I truly hated when he left because he was really my favorite player for a long time. Cardiac Kimba, as everybody knew him as, all the way from his UConn days, making that special shot that everybody remembers.
Yep.
But
Back in March Madness.
oh yeah, winning it all too. And
Yep.
but nah, I think it's a great step and a great step for him because obviously after he left us, he had a small stint in Boston. Didn't really work out too well for him there. Then he went to New York, if I'm not mistaken, which is home. He really didn't have a great tenure there at all. Then he had like one or two games with the Dallas Mavericks, and then they ended up cutting him. So just seeing him go from an all-star player, all-star starter at that, and to all the records he was breaking with the organization, to getting bounced around broke my heart truly. But I'm glad to see he's coming back home to the Queen City for the organization that drafted him. And I really think his skill sets and everything, because he was nasty on the court.
Oh
Everybody
yeah.
knows that.
Yep.
His name should have been up there with a lot of other players more than what it was during his time in the league. But I think what he brings could help. This is his first time coaching. I think it's huge. Then, like you said, they resigned Miles Bridges to a 3-year, $75 million extension or a new contract at that. Then we brought back Seth Curry, another veteran. Um, he was obviously there last year. I think he only signed a 1 year. Not sure the specifics of it. Then we also added um, Josh Green as well
Which is
from
extremely
Dallas.
intriguing. Extremely intriguing.
Yeah, it seems like we're truly seems like we're getting a bit of the Dallas players. We got talent, and then we also got another veteran in Taj Gibson from Detroit. Um, Veteran, true veteran. I feel like he's probably going to be more of a bench player. If he does play, it won't be long, but his skill sets could definitely be an asset for our team and where we're
Yeah.
going. If I, I think both teams can make a little noise this year. Panthers, what is your season expectation on their like ranking win loss?
So I realistically, I think 6 to 7 wins. I think I'm hoping for 8 or 9. Um, and I think those are achievable goals. Obviously, in the in the south of the division, the NFC South, it's very extremely weak. And I think it's anybody's game, in my opinion. I think anybody can win that division, really, honestly. From the Saints to the Bucks to the Falcons to the Panthers, I think it's wide open. I think by the end of the year, realistically, we should have the best quarterback in the division. I think that's I think that's a good expectation to have. I think Bryce is, the most talented one in the conference or in the division. And I think, 7, 8 wins, 9 wins, maybe is a good point to get to.
Yeah, well, according to ESPN.com, their bold prediction for the Panthers is that they'll win 8 games, while having the 3rd easiest schedule in the league, reportedly. So, hopefully it's possible. I'm like you. I'm actually going to say about the 5 or 6 wins. I don't want to get my hopes too high to be disappointed. I mean, we've been ever since Super Bowl, when Cam Newton didn't dive on the ball, and I'll never forget that day. But ever since then, the team just has not been what it was. And honestly, we've only averaged about 5.1 wins the past 6 seasons and haven't won more than 7 games since 2017, which our record was 11-5 that season. So we're hoping to get back there. I know that's a long shot for where we are now, but 8 wins, if we could just get there, like you said, we could be keyword, could be the best team in the NFC South, while the whole entire division is weak, like you said. All the teams got a little bit of work to do, but I think we have the talent. They said the same thing last year. But I really think with Canales as our coach and the staff he's brought in, he has it's proven that he has a specialty in improving quarterbacks. He did it with Baker last year, but I really think we could make a little bit of noise. I'm not gonna, again, let myself get too far ahead, expectation wise, but if we could really get to 8 wins, like ESPN says, that would satisfy me. At least to get back in the playoffs, even if we don't get best first round, just to be back in there would be amazing for me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Buzz Pound, we appreciate y'all joining us today. Obviously, much more to come between me and Cam. We appreciate y'all hanging around with us, and it's going to be a learning experience for the both of us. We're only going to improve and get better. I think, we both enjoy this and, want to pursue this. So I think it's going to be a good time for us both. We hope y'all enjoy, and stick around and give us a second chance.
And to keep up with all updates, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BuzzPoundPod. And to listen to all of our episodes, you can find us on Apple Music and Spotify. And until then, we're the Buzz Pound. Keep pounding, and Buzz City.
Right! Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Buzz Pound. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Until next time, this is the Buzz Pound.
Touchdown!